Welcome to the fastest stop in town. Today, Masechtas Kiddushin Daf Yud Aleph. We are going to begin on Yud Aleph Amud Aleph, about 8 lines from the top by the 2 dots. So we learned in our Mishnah B'Kesef that one of the ways you mekadosh an Isha is with giving her money. Now the question is how much money. So on that the Mishnah said Machlokas Beis Shammai Beis Hillel. Beis Hillel seems to be the most logical, which is a pruta or shava pruta, because that constitutes something of monetary value. For some reason, Beis Shammai says that's not enough. Rather, he said, Beis Shammai omer b'dinner b'chulu. You have to give at least a dinner, which is substantially more. So my tamai to Beis Shammai. Again, we don't ask a question on Beis Hillel because b'pashtus you would think it should be a pruta. So then, why in fact does he require a more money? That you have to give her at least a dinner. So Amr Zera Shekain Isha Makpedes al Atzma V'ein Miskadeshes Bepachlis Medinner. It's because a woman is makbid on herself, and she's not going to mekadosh herself. She's not going to marry this guy unless she at least gets a dinner. A woman is not going to just take a pruta. She's makbid. She has hakpada. So the Gemara says a little bit of a difficulty with this. Now, even though we're going to end up seeing maskana, there is a reason which almost sounds a little bit like it, but it's not we're going to see, at least according to this, it's totally on the individual woman and the fact that she's makbid. These women are quite makbid, unless they get, says Rashi, tarkava, which is 3 kabin of dinrim, golden coins. Hachinami the pashta yad v'kibla chad zuzah. If she would have taken 1 zuz, which is still a decent amount of money, mi'acher hachinami do havi Kiddushin. It's hard to understand that we're saying it's all totally on the individual woman, because it's almost like the Gemara says very often that hinachta al-shiurin, you're creating measurements on an individual basis. And usually the Chachamim, they give us a specific amount for a reason. And the question is, if the whole reason of a dinner is because a woman is makbid and she would never be makabel less than a dinner, well, how about women that would want a $100,000 diamond ring, for example, a mashal? So they would not accept a diamond ring, a ring which is only nebuch $10,000. Rahman al they'd have to accept. They wouldn't accept such a thing. But the question is, what if they did? So then when we say it's not a Kiddushin, it would be a Kiddushin. So omule pashta yad v'kiblo kimeboil kamina. 1 second. If she actually accepts it, so then itself is a gili milsa, that what she is doing is she is accepting it. So even though, let's say, she usually accepts a ring which is worth $100,000, but for this guy, maybe she likes him a lot, you'd hope, right? That the din is that if she accepts this ring, which is $1,000, it would still be a good Kiddushin, because she is demonstrating that she's not makbid. So ki kamina the kid shabalele. Let's say, imagine they got married at night. Smart move. So you can give her the Kiddushin money at night, so she has no idea how much money she's actually getting, right? Inami dishavi shliach, or let's say you have a shliach. Says Rashi l'kaba kedushaha, to accept her kedushin. Says Rashi v'lo nimlach ba b'kama, and it wasn't determined how much. U bante d'Rabbi nami ishavi shliach will have a kedushin el betarkava dinari, that they would require this massive amount of gold coins. So this is what's being brought up, that it's, if she's makabelit, okay, she's makabel, right? So you can't ask as a kasha. However, if for whatever reason she wasn't around, it was a shliach, or she didn't see it, was at night, so then it's going to be totally on hakpada. So a woman, every woman is makbid at up to a dinner. She would not want. She would never have accepted it if it was less than a dinner. So it has to be at least a dinner. You're right. When it comes to certain women, so then maybe they are more makbid. Again, it doesn't really explain. Again, l'chayra, as the Gemara Taisus brings us down, Imkein nasata devarecha with shiurin, right? Which again is l'chayra a good kasha because we normally don't allow it. That's what Taisa says. V'chitema hachanam midol miskachi b'pachas mitarkava didari. We should say that should actually be the baseline. That should be the minimum because otherwise, it's more subjective on the individual. Okay, Ein Taisus. So anyway, so that's the first answer. So fine. Rav Yosef Omer, Rav Yosef presents a second approach. Tamayu de Beis Hillel, de Beis Shammai rather, is Rabbi Yehuda Rav Asi. Then Rabbi Yehuda Rav Asi, what does he say? Kol kesef ha'omer b'Torah. Anytime we find some mentioning of kesef in the Torah, the amount of money that's given, the number, but is the number, but the money has to be called kesef suri. V'shel divrehen, however, if it's kesef, which is a rabbinic kesef, then you can even give kesef medina. Let's look in Rashi. Im piresh shkolim. If let's say it says shkolim, havi shekel tsuri, that's referring to the shekel of tsuri. V'im stam, if it doesn't mention it, and maybe I'm jumping ahead a little bit over here. So, if it says shkolim, then that means shekel tsuri. If it doesn't mention it, so we assume it's a matbeya hapachusa, a coin in which its mint is of less quality than tsuri, which is b'dvarayim. Says Rashi, l'kamim afarish l'kesef medina is shmina shebekesef suri. It's actually 1/8 less. So when we're dealing with a coin, let's say a particular coin in Medina, as opposed to the coin in Suri, that coin in Medina is 1/8 of its value compared to the more valuable kesef Suri. Im selahu shmina shebasela. So if we're dealing with the coin being a sela in Suri, in Medina, it's considered to be 1/8. Which, okay, v'im dinner hu, and if it's a dinner, hu shminis shibadiner tsuri, then it's 1/8. Hilkach pruta lo matzis lamemra. Says Rashi, you can't possibly say a pruta, because that's a copper coin. Uvasuri madbeh shel nechayshas leka. They did not make such coins, so it can't be a pruta. It can't be a pruta because a pruta doesn't exist when it comes to kesef tsuri. Kesef tsuri doesn't have copper prutos. The hakicha kicha gemiri bekivan de afte mipruta. Since it's not a pruta, alma midi de chashivas boy, it has to be something of chashivas, and therefore okumna a dinner, and therefore it gets put up to a dinner. So this is the logic. Because Kiddushin is a diraisa, and therefore you have to use kesef tsuri, there is no possibility of being a pruta, because a pruta is made out of copper, and that does not exist in the currency of kesef tsuri. And therefore, obviously you can't give a pruta. So therefore we say instead give a dinner. Cool, for getting back. So that is a second answer. Let's look at question number 6. My tamayu de Beis Shammai de Kiddushin kesef dinner. Why does it require a dinner? So we said there's 4 answers. So far we heard 2. One is because a woman is makbid, that she will not accept less than a dinner. Second is that we have no choice because since it's a din deraisa, it cannot be from kesef tsuri, which doesn't have copper currency. It doesn't have a pruta in that format, and therefore it has to therefore be a coin more valuable than that, and therefore we establish it as a dinner. Go for getting back. So that was a critical Rashi that we're able to see. In fact, the Gemara, Klolahu, is this in fact a rule? It says Rashi, Shekasev Shekasev B'Torah, Dafka Kasev Ksiv, or Shavyav, that the Torah is exact. V'nafkamina, the Havi Kasev Tsuri V'lo Prutos, that you're telling me anytime it's in the Torah that we do not allow you to use a pruta because it's connected to shel tsuri, and tsuri doesn't have prutos, as we continue to yud alpha on the base. Avari taina. What is taina? So Rashi says, Shadam taines chaveroi, O mashbiyan oiso im hoidem a mixas. Techsev kitin ish v'chul, the gaimer ba'olav ksiv asher yoimer ki huzeh, delfin mina, shahamoidem mixas yishava. So there is a requirement of a din deraisa in a case where a person says Yomi 100, and the person wasn't koifer koil. He was moedem mixas. He admitted to 50. 50 I paid you back. The other 50 I don't know you. So in that situation, since you're moedem mixas, you admit to some. So there's a chiyuv that you need to make a shua. So on this, the pasuk says kiyitin ishel re'ehu kesav okelim lishmor, that you give this person or coins, like money, maybe call it silver or vessels to guard. Utanan shvus hadayanim hatayna shtei kesev v'oidah shavar pruta. It says that when it comes to the taina, has to be the minimum of 2 kesev. However, he has to admit to at least having paid back a pruta. So what's the problem? The problem is, if we're talking that anytime the Torah speaks about kesev, it's talking about kesev suri, then it's not possible when we're talking in the Torah about moedva mixas that the minimum amount is a pruta, because a pruta doesn't exist in kesev suri. So hasam dumid kelim, al kelim shnayim of kesev shnayim. Just like when it comes to kelim, it's in plural that you need to have, you have to have double. So too when it comes to kesef. Uma kesef davar choshev av kelim davar choshev. So when it comes to kesef, it's a davar choshev. So too kelim is a davar choshev. So how does this answer the question? So let's start off looking at Rashi. Afilu v'afilu kafar ba'el pruta or yihoida b'pruta chayiv. If all you did was admit to a pruta, you're chayiv. Mikol makom in the tani shtei kesef. It says shtei kesef, that he has to claim 2 kesef. Shema mina kro lav davka kesef karmer. Doesn't really mean kesef. El amamoidim alma kapid. It's just talking about money in general. Kivandul pirish kama lo masar kasev el chachamim. So the chachamim are the ones who establish and figure this out. Now the ikar davka kesef ksiv. So if in fact the Torah is talking about kesef, nehi granted dimahi matbeya hapusa shibatsuri. A ma is the minimal coin in suri. Miu shtayim menolahu. Then why would you need 2? So the Torah doesn't say how much, and the Chachamim say that we require 2, but it should only be 1. But since they said 2, it's because kesef just means money. The answer is no. The reason why kesef is 2 is because kalim is 2, and therefore we're comparing kalim to kesef. Just like kalim is 2, so too when it comes to kesef it has to be 2. Okay. Bahari meiser. How about when it comes to the dinim of meiser? Dechsiv v'sarta hakesef biyadacha, that you have the form of coins in your hands. D'tanan hapirate selam imois meiser sheni. It says that when it comes to meiser sheni, if let's say you're bringing up your produce to Yerushalayim on years 1, 2, 4, and 5 of the 7-year Shemitah cycle, and it's too heavy, you can redeem it unto money. Now it says the language of kesef. So if it's kesef, l'char again, it has to be kesef tsuri. But nonetheless, it says haparit selam and meiser sheni. Says Rashi, maskana beishamai omer b'chol asela mois. Miu shamina mina. We can learn shechil tchila hamaiser bepruto shel nechayshas, that you're allowed to use copper coins. But again, if the Torah uses the word kesef, and every time it's kesef tsuri, there is no copper coins. So kesef ha kesef riba. You're right. Normally when it says kesef, it's davka. You can only redeem it on to kesef, which is therefore tsuri. Kesef tsuri. However, in this case, because we have a ribo in the pasuk, the extra hay, it allows even a pruta. Vari hektish. When it comes to redeeming hektish, the chsev v'nasan kesef v'kaimel. Again, it says the word kesef. Yom rachmana hektish shavimana, if you have hektish, which is the value of a mana, shechil al shava pruta, and you redeemed it onto something which is only worth a pruta, mechul, we still say that it actually works. So what? Says Rashi, de'eno no hektish. Now, even though it's true that normally we aren't able to overcharge for certain things, but there's no din of no when it comes to hektish. We're not going to say it was the mekach is batal, but again, the point is, how is it shaykh that you can do this on a shava pruta if it's supposed to be shel medina? So asamnami kesev yoav memaiser, which is interesting. The pasuk here says, just like v'sarta ha kesef, l'char you can say v'nasan ha kesef, v'nasan kesef, v'nasan ha kesef. I don't know if in that situation, why don't we just say the hay is extra? Okay, instead we learn out, just like when it comes to Meiser Sheni, you can use prutos, so too when it comes to hektish. Okay. For Kiddushin Isha, let's talk about marriage. This is what we're here for. And so we know that the kinyan of doing Kiddushin to a woman with kesef is linked to the Torah. So if that's in fact the case, Utanan Beis Hillel Beis Hillel says that you can use a pruta. So name Rav Asi, name Beis Shammai. It must be that he disagrees with Beis Hillel, because Beis Hillel says you can use a pruta. But how can you use a pruta if the Torah is requiring that kesef needs to be from Tsuri, which doesn't have prutos? El Ian Marhachimar. Rabbi Yehuda Rav Asi. This is how you read it. Kol kesef kotzu. Any money which is a set amount, ha'amr b'Torah. Let's say the Torah says, for example, when it comes to knas, it says that you have to pay 50. Or when it comes to an eved, it says you have to pay 30. Or when you're mitzi shemra on your wife, there's a requirement of 100, right? And it says by them shkolim. So therefore, what do we mean when we mention these numbers? So since it's a kesef kotzov, hamar b'Torah kesef tsuri. Since it has a set amount, which is also like an element of a knas, so we say that it's going to be the higher amount, which is the currency of tsuri. However, if it's something which is midorabanan, in which is not a set amount of kesef, so kesef medina, then you can use kesef medina. So that is actually what he's establishing over here. Okay. Fine. So my kamashmal and Tanina, we already know this, that Chamesh Sloim Shel Bain, when it comes to the 5 Sloim of redeeming your firstborn son, Shloishim Shel Eved, or the 30 coins that are in the event of an Eved, or Chamishim Shel Einis Shel Mafata, the 50 for being Ma'anis and Mafata, a woman, or Mea Shel Moitzi Shemra, the 100 for being Moitzi Shemra, Kulam B'Shekel Kodesh B'Matzuri. We already know that all these coins, all these currencies, when you pay them out, this kanas, you have to pay in B'Manatzuri. We already know that. So what is this chiddush? That anything which is kotzu, anything which has a set amount, that you have to use Manatzuri. We already know that that's the din. My answer is you're right. V'shel divreihem kesem medina tzrichale. The chiddush is that midrabanan, when it comes to dini derabanan, kesem medina, dolotanan, that is not mentioned. And therefore, says Rashi, Kami Havi, how much Hashimina duhu kesem medina. The chiddush is that when we're dealing with shel divreihem, that you only have to use kesem medina. Dolotanan. Desanya. Hatoikel chaveroi. Let's say a person, says Rashi, Koloimer heichem atzinu kesem divreihem. Where do we find such a case? So a person is tokel chaver abaznu. You scream into your friend's ear, and Rabbeinu Zakim says, Shehi kahu eitzel ois, and you hit near his ear. Noisen l'tzela. So the din is you have to give a sela, says Rashi. Kach shiru demei boishtoi l'adam beinani. This is the embarrassment for an average man. Vashmi'in and Ravasi, he's coming to tell you that Palga de Zuzah Shmini Shivasela Suri. Let's continue the Gemara. Noislo Sela. V'lo tema my Sela arba Zuz. You have to give 4 Zuz. Ela my Sela Palga de Zuz, a half a Zuz. Diavidi Inshi de Karla Palga Zuzah Istira. There are those that call half a Zuz Istira. So we see Medina is 1/8 of Suri. Which also explains, let's make sure I understand this clearly. If we look at the Lashon of the Mishnah, he says, what is a pruta? Echad mishmona be'isser hitalki. 1/8 of an Italian isser. So again, we see another mentioning of it being an eighth, that there's a chiluk between an eighth, between Medina and Suri. Okay. Fine. Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish Omer, Tamaya de Beis Shammai. So now we're going to finally get to a third answer. Why does Beis Shammai require that you have to give a dinner? Kiddushin, Dior Mechizkia, Omer Kra, the hefta. It says that you redeem her. That's what the pasuk says. And Rashi says this is going to be brought down later on in our parak Daf Yudalid. Diktani Gabi Eved Ivri. Now, when it comes to a Jewish slave, kindness atzma bigurion kesef. The din is that, let's say, he stole $600 worth of goods, and he's your slave for 6 years. So so it's $100 each year. So every year it gets deducted. After, let's say, 4 years, he owes $200. So he can work for those 2 years, or he can somehow come up with that $200. Obviously, it would be a lot more money than that, but that's what Gurion Kesef is. Says Rashi, he calculates with his master, when he wants to redeem himself, this is how much I was bought for, I was only supposed to work for 6 years. This is how much every year my worth is. I've worked for you, let's say 4 years. The Tol Hashar, that's basically how it's calculated. So we went off the hefta to teach us, let's just see the next 4 words in the Gemara, that they deduct how much they already worked for. Again, in not a great example, maybe I should say instead of $600, let's call it $600,000, right? This guy, his work is worth $100,000. He stole $600,000 and it's for 6 years, let's say, to keep it simple. So he worked for 4, so he has to pay back now $200,000. Says Rashi, that he also can help out. So we're going to see, so too by Kiddushin Isha, these dinim are going to also apply just from Amma Havriya. Okay, so this is a din by Eved Ivri and Amma Havriya. There's also could be pointed by Gurion Kesef. Now, dinner. Let's say he gave a dinner. Hainu dimigara ba'azla ad pruta. Therefore, a dinner is a larger currency. So therefore, it's necessary that he worked a certain amount of time, and therefore it can now be deducted, and there you can actually pay back. Because again, let's translate a dinner as $100 bill, and he worked already a few years, so then you can be deducted. Oh, you worked $50 worth, and you owe me another $50. And you can do that all the way until the very last penny. El iyam diyoiv pruta. So if, let's say, the amount that this guy was bought for was a pruta, so a pruta mimigara, you can't deduct it, right? It's the minimum amount. So therefore, it has to be that when it comes to an Eved Ivri or an Amavriya, that you have to be able to buy them for more than just a pruta in order for there to be a concept of deducting the money as they go through their work. So we're going to again learn, so too when it comes to Kiddushin Isha, the din is the same. You can't give her a pruta, not that she's going to redeem herself and leave the marriage. But that's how we've been comparing an Amavriya Eved Ivri to an Isha in certain ways. But Rachmana. How do we know that it's an actual requisite? Maybe it just means if you paid again $600,000, so then it can be deducted. But if you bought the guy for a penny, then you can't deduct it. But it doesn't mean that you can't do it. So too maybe also by an Isha, you could taka give her a pruta. As we continued, don't say that. Because Dumi the Yud, it's comparable to Yud, as Rashi says. It has to be that there is girui, that you have the ability to deduct. Because it has to be comparable to Yud. What is that? It says Rashi, Ki heichid yomer le'inid Yud, shenichtav imo asher lo yada, v'manu, shirshai ha'adain le'yada, lo b'toich shnei amhus. That the master has the ability to actually marry her. V'tiyeh mukadeshes lo, and he'll be married to her. Im yomer lo, if he says to her, Hariyat mu'edesli, using that language, b'mashi yeshli alayich, with the leftover money owed to me. Ve'en sarach kesav acher. The din is, he doesn't have to give any other money. Now this actually works. He can say Hari mu'edesli, and the money that is owed, so that could be like as the Kiddushin. Now, therefore, my yud afgav the iboy miyayid v'iboy lo miyayid. It's true, the adon doesn't have to marry this woman, right? It's not an obligation. Nonetheless, kol hechadol matzi miyayid lo yahav zvina. However, in a situation where he's not shaykh to be able to do yud, it's not a sale. Hachanami kol hechadol matzi migara lo yahav zvina. So too, it wouldn't be a sale. It wouldn't be a Kiddushin Isha. It wouldn't be good either. So just like my Yid, if he can't do Yid, he doesn't have to. But since he has to have the potential, and if he doesn't have the potential, it's not a sale. So too, when it comes to, and this is what Rashi says, Ein avia the rishai l'machal kroivim. He can't sell her to relatives. She is sur lehem misham erev lefi shein ani mekaybo ashel yada. So if a father is not allowed to sell his daughter to a relative because that relative is not shaykh to marry her because she's a davar ereva. So even though you don't have to, but you have to have that potential. So too when it comes to the Gurin Kesef, you don't have to redeem with money, but you have to have the potential. So that's what we see. Hachanami kol heichav the lo matzah migro lo having zvina. The Kiddushin Isha gabei nafkamuhu nafkal mama avriya, and he learns out from mama avriya. Mama avriya bepruta lo machnia, that you can't buy an amavriya with a pruta. Af isha bepruta lo kadsha. So that's it. So ve'ema palga de dinner, ve'ema shtei prutos. Why a dinner? Let it be half a dinner. Let it be 2 prutos. Where it says kivan de af pikte mipruta. Once we already said a pruta is not in play, therefore ukma a dinner. Why? Says Rashi, alma chashivusa boy, ukma dinner de choshev. We want to give something which is a davar choshev. And then finally, the fourth and probably the most famous answer, Rava oimer hayutan misham shloy hu benois Yisrael kehefker. We don't want a woman to think that you can just buy her, do marriage in like she's ownerless. Liknos bedavar muat, to buy something, giving something insignificant. When Rabbanan hu de karmila beishamai the afke Rabbanan Kiddushin habchusim a dinner. The truth is beishamai holds meikar din. You're right. Meikar din, you could be able to just give a pruta, but that's not a good thing to do because it's disrespectful to treat a woman that way, that she's so insignificant in your eyes. And therefore, the Chachamim said you have to give at least a dinner. Okay, so let's complete question 6. So again, there's 4 answers. Either because women are makbid on themselves, or whenever there's a kes of the Torah, it's kes of suri, and the kes of suri doesn't have prutos. Third answer is we went out, Beis Shammai learns out from Amavriya, the loy makne bepruta, that you cannot buy an amavri with a pruta because there's no deduction of kesef in that way, and therefore we learn out that since it can't be a pruta, we're going to up it to a dinner. Or shalei b'nais Yisrael kehefker. TA 9. Amrullah kansi selazubi bikan v'chazavi amrullah hiskachelu. Okay, we didn't do that, so there's not a single question there. TB 9. TB 9. Ma tam de beishamai de Kiddushin bedinner. We already did that. Adkan.